Flag and seaplane tender Curtis. This was the Curtis right here that we tended off of. It was also dispatched from Noumea, New Caledonia to Espiritu Santo as when we moved. At any rate, it says, Rear Admiral McCain, boss of all the aircraft in the theater, flew his flag and seaplane tender Curtis at Espiritu Santo, which from August 5 played host to Patrol Squadron VP-23. While the modern small seaplane tender Mackinac set up a refuge on August 8 for 9 PBYs of VP-23 at Maliata. Right here. I flew patrol out of there, Santa Cruz, and Maliata. Spent 6 months in Guadalcanal. Returned several times with perforations in the aircraft.
Take a step.
But we never had a crewman injured, never lost an engine. On January the 1st, 1943, I, along with several others, received orders to proceed back to Pearl Harbor. Our orders were at that time to travel on to San Diego and help commission a new PBY squadron and return to the South Pacific. When we reached San Diego, our orders had been changed. We immediately began training in B-24s. I was in the 1st Navy B-24 squadron commissioned by the Navy, BB-103. We trained 1 month in San Diego, moved to Argentia, Newfoundland. Yeah, B-24, I'm sure a lot of you recognize that. At any rate, we trained 2 months in Argentia, Newfoundland. April the 1st, 1943, I was in Dunkswell, Devonshire, England, and began patrol over the English Channel and the Bay of Biscay, which is the western coast of France. I spent 15 months patrolling this area. This is Dunkswell, Devonshire right here. As I said, we spent 15 months there. This is the Bay of Biscay down the western coast of France here. We had a lot of experiences there. We were not the only one patrolling that area. The Germans had the air full of ME-109s and the Fokker 111. I had the pleasure of eliminating one. We had just come out of a cloud cover, and right in front of us passed an ME-109. I had a broadside shot at him and eliminated one ME-109. It was pretty tricky on those things, you know, in the B-24, trying to evade the fighters. You could duck into a cloud, but if you went straight to the cloud, you know, you might find another fighter on the other side waiting for you. So most of the time, you go in the cloud, make a turn, come out some other direction. But at any rate, when we came out, he was right in front of me with dead shot. In this area here, I was credited with a half kill of a sub. 2 B-24s were involved. We made simultaneous runs over the sub in different directions, and each received 1/2 kill of the sub. "15 months, as I said. I was there during the time. I had a few days of leave. I went to London, and that was the days during the buzz bomb. And I don't know how many of you know what the buzz bomb was, but it was just a small drone with a very small one-cylinder gasoline engine in it. The Germans armed it with enough fuel to reach the place they wanted it to drop. And the natives in London says, you know, when you hear that engine stop, you better run for cover. In July 1944, I received orders to go to Chincoteague, Virginia, which is just across the bay from Norfolk, to help train and commission a new B-24 squadron and return to Europe. The war was drawing down a little at that time. The squadron was never commissioned. I spent a year in Chincoteague as a flight engineer, was then transferred to Pensacola, Florida, to what was called then a PB-4Y2 squadron, which was the Navy's version of the B-24. It had a single tail fin, larger engine, and more guns. But it came along too late in the conflict and never did see combat. At any rate, I spent a year there, was transferred to Patuxent River, Maryland, was a flight engineer on what was known in civilian life as a DC-4. Navy called it an R-5D. But at any rate, I spent a year there. In April 1948, I received an honorable discharge. I received 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 6 Air Medals, and 7 meritorious written citations, 5 signed by the Secretary of Navy, 1 by FDR. That was the end of my military career.
Hoorah!
Well, we probably have some questions.
What am
I've already asked you one, and you came up. You actually didn't have anything to comment on, and I'm kind of surprised in a way. I don't know if you've given it more thought. But you know, in the military, there's always, we don't call them faux pas, what do we call it? Any screw-ups is probably a better word.
Oh, yes.
Foxtrots. But anyhow, there are sometimes very humorous things that happen that we are a witness to, and you can't believe your eyes that you saw it happen in the first place. And I don't know if you've given any more thought from the time we were at dinner tonight, but is there anything that you remember, either in your training or actual combat, that you just, hey, this is beyond
I'd like to
belief?
leave you with one thing. You know, when I was going through boot training, Bill, our training officer was a chief gunner's mate by the name of Sartorius. I'll never forget him. We're all lined up for inspection one day, and he says, "Okay, sailors," he says, "I want you to round out those white hats." He says, "I know some of you are pretty salty, but most of you still smell from cow manure."
That wasn't directed at you now.
I have some things here. I have some quotes here that I want to read to you, Bill, by some famous men, in my opinion. I forgot this early on, but I don't know. I know you people are not old enough to realize this, but back in the 1930s, the Japanese were buying up all the scrap iron that they could find. And I, as a young lad, even sold some. But Admiral Halsey and his son was walking by a San Francisco shipyard watching a Japanese freighter being loaded with scrap iron. He says, "Son, someday we'll get it back in the form of bullets."
In the 30s.
And
Wow.
just after Pearl Harbor, the Emperor of Japan, Hirohito, rode a white stallion. Just after the war then, Halsey said, "I'm going to ride that son of a bitch down the streets of Tokyo."
Did you ever do it?
Halsey made a trip to see General MacArthur, and he said, "General," he said, "you're a very smart general, but you're glory happy." He said, "What we need to do is work together to end this conflict." Just before the Battle of Midway, Halsey was in the Naval Hospital with shingles. And his remark was, he said, "The greatest naval battle in history is about to take place, and here I am laying up here taking baths in oatmeal." Nimitz went to see Halsey, and he says, "Who am I going to get to replace you on the Enterprise?" He said, "Admiral Spruance." He says, "Hell, he's a cruiser, Admiral." He says, "I don't give a damn. He runs them fast enough to stay up with my cares." And Halsey also said, if we had lost Midway, it would have prolonged the war by many months, and if we had lost Midway and Guadalcanal, we very easily could have lost the war. Here's one from General Patton. And after Rommel was defeated by General Patton in North Africa, Rommel asked him, he says, "How did you know all this?" He says, "I read your book, you son of a bitch." Okay, and when the war ended then, General MacArthur made a statement. He says, "The Pacific Ocean without Admiral Halsey will never be the same. It'll just be another ocean." Nimitz, I forgot to give this to you earlier, but after the Battle of Midway, Nimitz made a little speech here, and if I can find it for you. At any rate, he praised all the participants in the Midway battle, saying, you know what, when Admiral Nimitz received word that our U.S. naval forces had sunk the 4th Japanese carrier, he released a prepared message. "To you who have participated in the Battle of Midway today have written a glorious page in our history. I am proud to be associated with you. I estimate that another day of all-out effort on your part will complete the defeat of the enemy." And many historians have described the Battle of Midway as the greatest naval battle of all time. And I'm proud to say I played a small part.
Here, here. You know, and
Flag and seaplane tender Curtis. This was the Curtis right here that we tended off of. It was also dispatched from Noumea, New Caledonia to Espiritu Santo as when we moved. At any rate, it says, Rear Admiral McCain, boss of all the aircraft in the theater, flew his flag and seaplane tender Curtis at Espiritu Santo, which from August 5 played host to Patrol Squadron VP-23. While the modern small seaplane tender Mackinac set up a refuge on August 8 for 9 PBYs of VP-23 at Maliata. Right here. I flew patrol out of there, Santa Cruz, and Maliata. Spent 6 months in Guadalcanal. Returned several times with perforations in the aircraft.
Take a sip.
But we never had a crewman injured, never lost an engine.